Good morning, students. Yesterday, in part 2, we have read the celebrations that took place in above the Union buildings, the air show, the flying of the jets and the helicopters in perfect coordination, and how the military that used to carry atrocities on the colored people under the orders of former apartheid government took a pledge to for the took a pledge to be loyal to the newly formed government uh, and saluted their first black president, and how Nelson Mandela remembers that this freedom, this newborn freedom, was because of the sacrifices of thousands of people, and he named many: Oliver Tambo, Bram Fisher. These people have sacrificed their life, and he says that how the essential goodness of a man can be suppressed, but it cannot be eliminated, as it is natural in human being to love. Let's read the third part. It says, in life, every man has twin obligations to his family, to his parents, to his wife and children, and he has an obligation to his people, his community, his country. So Nelson Mandela tells us that all people, all man have to fulfill the two duties. Two duties are there, two responsibilities are there that are desirous of a man. What? One is towards the family that consists of parents, wife, children, the duties towards them, the responsibilities towards them. And then he says he has an obligation to his people, his community, and his country. And the second responsibility, second commitment is towards the people of the community you belong to, towards the country you belong to. And every man should fulfill these twin obligations. In a civil and humane society, each man is able to fulfill those obligations according to his own inclinations and abilities. So, Nelson Mandela says that when it comes to organized governments, when it comes to civilized society, where everyone has provided the fundamental rights or the constitutional rights, these obligations towards family, obligations towards the community or country you belong to, can be easily achieved according to the person's inclination and the ability. But in a country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both of those obligations. But when it comes to Nelson Mandela, he says that it was very difficult for for me, that is me as a black person, to fulfill those obligations towards family and towards country because of the color he was of. In South Africa, a man of color who attempted to live as a human being was punished and isolated. So it says in South Africa, if a person of color, that is black color, was desirous to live a simple life of human being, was desirous to live a life where he has been given fundamental rights, freedoms. If he desired the so, then he was punished, atrocities were done on him, and he was isolated, he was imprisoned, or he has to live a life of isolation. In South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people was inevitably ripped from his family and his home and was forced to live a life apart, a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion. So it says in South Africa, if a man tried to fulfill his duty towards his people, that is black people, they are talking in terms of black people, and it says if such a person wanted to fulfill his duty towards his community, then he was taken away from his family and his home and was forced to live a life of isolation, a twilight existence of secrecy, that is, the black colored people were not allowed to live freely at all. And if they dared to live freely, that meant that they were considered as rebels, and such people were either had to live a life in the dark forest, hiding from government, security forces, or were imprisoned, or they could be killed any time. So it was a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion for them. I did not in the beginning chose to place my people above my family. He says that in the beginning his family was everything, his duties towards family was everything. But in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented from fulfilling my obligation as a son, a brother, a father, and a husband. But when he realized that he when he wanted to serve his people, that is when he wanted to stood by the other black people and fight for the injustice done to them in the name of color, in the name of race, he realized that he was prevented from fulfilling his duty, and he was taken away from his family, and he was not able to do his responsibilities towards his family as a son or a father or brother. That is, he was imprisoned for 30 years and he was taken away from his family. I was not born with a hunger to be free. I was born free, free in every way that I could know. So it says when he was born free. He never knew what freedom is. He just knew it's freedom, it's life, and life is to be enjoyed. Free to run in the fields near my mother's hut, free to swim in the clear stream that ran through my village, free to roast mealies under the stars and ride the broad backs of slow moving bulls. So he's talking about his childhood, that when he was born he had enjoyed and taken pleasure of childhood life, running in the fields, swimming in the stream, and enjoying the baked maize or corn under the stars, and enjoying the ride of bulls. As long as I obeyed my father and abide by the customs of my tribe, I was not troubled by the law of man or God. So he says that every child is taught in the family certain customs, certain duties and rights, and in society also certain values are given by the society, that these norms are to be followed. So he says that as long as I followed those, I obeyed my father, I abided to the rules given by the tribe, there was no problem by the law or by God. It was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion, when I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken from me, that I began to hunger for it. So he says that when I grew up, when I became young, I realized that my childhood freedom to swim in stream, to run in the fields, or to enjoy the rides of the bulls, this freedom was an illusion. He realized that his freedom to live as a human being was taken away from him, and he began to hunger for it. He began to yearn for his freedom, the right to live with the color he was born, the right to live with the black color as a human being he was born. So he started yearning for the same. At first, as a student, as a student, I wanted freedom only for myself, the transitory freedoms of being able to stay out at night, read what I please, and go where I chose. So it says when I was a student, the desire of freedom was what? That I can stay out for a night, or I can read whatever I wish to. Later, as a young man in Johannesburg, I yearned for the basic and honorable freedom of achieving my potential, of earning my keep, of marrying and having a family. The freedom not to be obstructed in a lawful life. So he says that when he was in Johannesburg, he was a young man, he desired an honorable life, a free life, a life of a human being, a civilized life of a human being, where he was given the basic rights, fundamental rights to live, to earn, to get married, to have a family, and that freedom should not be obstructed or hindered by any lawful authority. So this was his desire, and he said that I have to fight for that right. But then I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were not free. He says that how slowly I realized that it was not only my freedom that I had to fight for, but then people with the same color, the black people, the people with the same race and community, my brothers, my sisters, they were also not free. Even they had to fight for this, for the freedom to live. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed, but the freedom of everyone who looked like I did. So he realized that how it was not only his freedom that was reduced or restricted, it was the freedom of all the people who looked like him, that is, who looked like black colored, black skin colored person. That is when I joined the African National Congress, and that is when the hunger of my own freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom of my people. So it says that that is time when that realization came to me, when I realized that it is not a fight of one person, it's just not me fighting for my freedom to live a normal life of a human being, but it is a fight for the larger people, for the larger cause, for the fight of all the people who are suffering under this racial segregation. And he realized that this is the fight, this is the hunger for the freedom of all my people, that he joined the African National Congress. It was this desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self respect that animated my life. So, Nelson Mandela says that it was this desire that the freedom of my people, that is, all we black people, the freedom we wanted, that we wanted our lives full of dignity, of honor, of self respect. We wanted to live like a human being and not be treated as animals or slaves. That animated my life, that has given shape or given transformed him as a person. He was transformed from a frightened young man into a bold one. So he was frightened person himself, but then he became bold and courageous. And this is what he says, that to stand for the basic rights of my people, to stand for the rights that were snatched away from the black people, he had to stand up, and he became bold and courageous. He had to give voice to his rightful cause that drove a law abiding attorney to become a criminal. And he says that how he was a lawyer and had a firm belief in the law, but then he turned criminal. Why? He became rebellious. He had to stand against the apartheid system, he had to stand against the white supremacy. And he says that law abiding attorney to become a criminal, that turned a family loving husband into a man without a home. So he says that he was a family loving husband, he had obligations towards family, he was having duties towards his family, but then he had to give his sacrifice. He had to sacrifice his family life, his emotional life, his personal life, that forced a living life loving man to live like a monk. So this person who loved life, the gift of life, he became a monk. That is, he became rebellious, and he had to fight for the injustice done to the black people. I am no more virtuous or self-sacrificing than the next man, but I found that I could not even enjoy the poor and limited freedoms I was allowed when I knew my people were not free. So he says that I'm equal to the other people, I'm as equal to my other fellow being, the people of my color, and I could not enjoy the limited freedom that was given to us, because he knew that my people were under bondage, they were under slavery, they were brutally punished, they were beaten and treated like animals, and all the rights were snatched away from them. The right to be a human being was snatched away from them. Freedom is indivisible. The chains on any one of my people were the chains on all of them. The chains on all of my people were the chains on me. So he says that freedom cannot be divided. And if people are chained, he says the chains on any one of my people were chains on all of them. That is, they were snatching the rights of the people, they were snatching the rights of the black people, and they were robbing them of their right to freedom. And he says that if their right to freedom was taken away from them, then those chains on all of my people were chains on me, and that the freedom of my people was taken away, the right to survive as a human being was taken away. I felt as if my liberty, my freedom has been taken away from me. I knew that the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. Oppressor is one who tries to dominate, who tries to suppress. An oppressed one who is a victim, who is being oppressed. So he says that even the oppressor should be set free. He should be liberated. He should be set free as one who is oppressed. A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hate. So he says the person that is the oppressor, he takes away, he snatches away the freedom of another person. So that person is a prisoner of hate. He is the prisoner of hate. He has that hate growing in his mind, in his soul every day. And his heart, his soul is weighed heavily with this hatred and the curses of the family. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow mindedness. So the oppressor, his thoughts are locked behind the prejudice, that is the biasness, a strong dislike because of religion, of community, of race, of color. It can be any reason. So he is locked in that prejudice and narrow mindedness. I'm not truly free if I'm taking away someone else's freedom. So he's talking about himself, that if I take away the freedom, snatch away a freedom of somebody, then I'm not free. Even I'm locked in a prison. Just as surely as I am not free when my freedom is taken from me. So he says that I felt that I am not free when my freedom is taken away from me. That is we black people. He's talking in terms of I, that is me, black colored people of South Africa, that the basic right to be a human being was taken away from them. So he did not felt free. He felt in chains and he felt that he is in prison. The oppressed and the oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity. So both the oppressed and the oppressor are robbed of the humanity. That is, taking away someone else's freedom and making him a prisoner is similar, and making him a prisoner is, that is, robbing humanity, the goodness of human being, that is lost. That is the values and the goodness that is inherent in a person, that is lost altogether. The oppressed and the oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity. So Nelson Mandela says that the oppressor, that is the white, and the oppressed, that is the black people, they are alike robbed of their humanity. That is, they both are robbed of their humanity, the essential goodness in them. That is, both of them are not free. Neither the oppressor nor the oppressed is free. They both are caged. They are caged with hatred. Oppressor is caged with prejudice and narrow mindedness, and oppressed is robbed of humanity by putting him in prison and ill treating him. An oppressed cannot express himself and soon will start losing his humanity. So Nelson Mandela concludes that it is very essential to liberate them, to set them free. That is, the oppressor and oppressed should be set free, so that the essential goodness of humanity, that is love, compassion, kindness, and peace, could be brought.